Emma Williams sat in her small London flat, staring at a laptop screen. The rejection email from another tech company glowed back at her. This was the 15th no in 3 months. Despite her computer science degree from Oxford and years of experience, finding work seemed impossible. She closed the laptop and walked to the window. Outside, people hurried along the busy street, everyone seeming to have somewhere important to go. Emma felt left behind, like she was watching life happen to everyone else while she remained stuck in the same place. Emma had always dreamed of working in technology. Growing up in Birmingham, she was the girl who fixed everyone's computers and built websites for local shops. When Mrs. Peterson's computer crashed, Emma was there. When the corner bakery needed a website, Emma created it for free. Her teachers said she had a gift. Her parents worked extra hours to support her education, believing in her potential. "You're going to do great things, Emma," her mother would say while working late into the night at the factory. "All this hard work will pay off." Now, at 28, Emma felt lost. The savings from her last job were running low. Each day brought new worries about paying rent, buying groceries, and keeping the lights on. Her husband James worked as a consultant, traveling frequently for business. He encouraged her daily, but the constant rejections were crushing her confidence. Emma remembered her graduation day at Oxford. She had felt so proud wearing her cap and gown. Holding her computer science degree, her parents had driven down from Birmingham, beaming with pride. They had sacrificed so much for her education. Now she wondered if it had all been worth it. The flat felt smaller each day. Emma spent hours applying for jobs, writing cover letters and preparing for interviews. That never came. She had applied to tech companies across London, from small startups to large corporations. Some never replied. Others sent polite rejection letters. A few invited her for interviews. But they all ended the same way. Emma began to doubt herself. Maybe she wasn't as good as she thought. Maybe her degree didn't matter. Maybe she was fooling herself about having talent in technology. She walked to the kitchen and made herself a cup of tea. The bills on the counter seemed to stare at her accusingly. The rent was due next week. The electricity bill was overdue. Emma had never felt so desperate in her life. James called that evening from Manchester, where he was working with a client. "How are you feeling today, love?" he asked gently. "The same," Emma replied, trying to keep the sadness out of her voice. Another rejection came today. "I'm sorry, Emma. I know this is hard, but you're brilliant. The right company will see that." Emma wanted to believe him, but hope felt dangerous now. Each time she got excited about a possibility, the disappointment hurt more. Then, one Tuesday morning, her phone rang. Emma almost didn't answer because she was tired of disappointment, but something made her pick up. "Miss Williams, this is Kate from Pinnacle Tech Solutions. We'd like to invite you for an interview tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Emma's heart raced. Pinnacle Tech Solutions was one of London's most respected technology companies. She had heard about their innovative projects and excellent workplace culture. This was exactly the kind of company she had always dreamed of joining. "Yes, absolutely. I'll be there," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. After hanging up, Emma felt a rush of excitement she hadn't experienced in months. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. She spent the entire day preparing, researching the company's history, recent projects, and company values. She read about their latest software releases and studied their mission statement. Emma practiced her answers to common interview questions in front of the mirror. She prepared examples of her best work and thought about how to explain her experience clearly. She wanted to be perfect. She chose her best professional outfit, a navy blue suit that made her feel confident and competent. She polished her shoes until they gleamed and organized her portfolio with care, every detail. Mattered. That night, Emma could barely sleep. She tossed and turned, imagining how the interview might go. She pictured herself walking into the office, shaking hands with the interviewer, and confidently discussing her qualifications. Tomorrow would change everything. She told herself. Emma whispered a prayer before finally drifting off to sleep, hoping this time would be different. She had no idea that it would be different in ways she never expected, ways that would challenge everything she thought she knew about fairness, opportunity, and the power of standing up for what's right. Emma arrived at Pinnacle Tech's glass building 15 minutes early. The morning sun reflected off the tall windows, making the structure look like a crystal tower reaching toward the sky. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was impressive, with modern art hanging on white walls and comfortable leather seating ranged in perfect circles. Fresh flowers sat on glass tables, and the marble floor gleamed under bright lights. Emma had never seen such a beautiful office building. She checked her reflection one last time in the polished elevated doors and approached the reception desk. "I'm Emma Williams. I have an interview at 2 o'clock," she said to the young woman behind the desk. The receptionist, who wore a name tag that read Lucy, smiled warmly. "Of course, please take a seat. Mr. Stone will be with you shortly." Emma chose a chair near the window and tried to calm her nerves. She watched the busy street outside, where people walked quickly past the building. Inside, she observed employees. Walking through the lobby, everyone looked professional and confident, carrying laptops and talking on phones about important business matters. A woman in a sharp black suit discussed software updates with a colleague. 2 men in pressed shirts walked by, laughing about a successful client meeting. Emma imagined herself among them, contributing to important projects, finally using her skills to make a difference. She pictured herself arriving at work each morning, greeting colleagues, attending meetings where her ideas mattered. Maybe she would have her own office with a window view. Maybe she would lead a team of developers, creating software that helped people solve problems. Emma Williams, a tall man in his 50s, approached her. He had grey hair and wore an expensive suit, but his expression seemed cold. "I'm Richard Stone, the hiring manager. Follow me." Emma stood up quickly, smoothed her skirt, and extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Stone." He shook her hand briefly, barely making eye contact, then turned and walked toward a hallway. Emma followed him past several offices where she glimpsed other employees working at their computers. The walls were decorated with awards and photos of company events. They entered a small conference room with a round table and 2 chairs. Mr. Stone sat down heavily and gestured for Emma to sit across from him. He placed her resume on the table, but barely glanced at it. From the moment they sat down, something felt wrong. The warm, welcoming atmosphere Emma had felt in the lobby disappeared. Mr. Stone's body language was closed off. His arms crossed, his expression uninterested. So, he began, his tone already dismissive. "Tell me about yourself." Emma had practiced this answer dozens of times. She spoke clearly about her education at Oxford, her experience with different programming languages, and her passion for creating innovative solutions. But Mr. Stone seemed distracted, checking his watch and looking toward the door, when Emma explained her previous projects, including a website she had built for a charity that helped homeless families. Mr. Stone interrupted her. "Are you sure you can handle the pressure here? This isn't like other places you might have worked." Emma felt confused. She had worked at demanding companies before, often staying late to meet deadlines and solving complex problems under pressure. I'm confident in my abilities, Mr. Stone. I've successfully managed complex projects under tight deadlines. He frowned and leaned back in his chair. Well, we need someone who fits our company culture. Someone who understands how we do things. Here, Emma tried to ask what he meant by company culture, but he changed the subject. He asked basic questions about programming languages, things any computer science graduate would know. When Emma gave detailed, accurate answers, he seemed almost annoyed. Do you think you would be comfortable in our environment? He asked, his meaning unclear. I believe I would thrive here. Emma replied, though she was starting to feel unwelcome. The interview continued for only 20 minutes. Mr. Stone asked fewer questions than in any interview Emma had ever experienced. He seemed to have made up his mind about her before she even spoke. We'll be in touch, he said, standing up abruptly. Lucy will show you out. Emma gathered her things, feeling stunned. She had prepared for hours, researched the company thoroughly, and dressed professionally. But none of it seemed to matter. She walked back through the beautiful lobby, past the modern art and comfortable seating. But now it all felt cold and unwelcoming. Other candidates sat waiting for their interviews, looking hopeful and excited the way Emma had felt just 30 minutes earlier. Emma left the building feeling crushed and humiliated. She stood on the sidewalk, watching people walk past, and wondered what she had done wrong. The interview had been nothing like she expected, and she couldn't understand why. Emma returned to her flat, feeling defeated. The train ride home had been a blur of faces and sounds, but she had barely noticed anything round her. She climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. She unlocked the door and walked straight to her small living room. Without even changing out of her interview clothes, Emma collapsed onto the old sofa that she and James had bought when they first moved in together. The navy blue suit that had made her feel confident that morning now felt like a costume for a play that had gone terribly wrong. Emma stared at the ceiling for whole minutes, trying to understand what had happened. She had been so prepared, so hopeful. The interview had lasted only 20 minutes, but those 20 minutes had crushed something inside her. She began to cry, softly at first, then with deep, shaking sobs that came from months of rejection and disappointment. The phone rang round 6 o'clock. Emma saw James's name on the screen and almost didn't answer. She didn't want to disappoint him too, but she knew he would be worried if she didn't pick up. How did it go, love? James asked gently. His voice was warm and caring, the same voice that had encouraged her through all the other rejections. Emma tried to speak, but only a sob came out. She took a deep breath and tried again. It was awful, James, really awful. What happened? Tell me everything. Through tears, Emma described the awful interview. She told him about Mr. Stone's cold attitude from the moment they sat down, how he had barely looked at her resume, even though she had spent hours perfecting it, how he had interrupted her when she tried to explain her experience and qualifications. He kept asking if I could handle the pressure, as if I was some kind of beginner. But James, I've worked under pressure before. I've managed difficult projects and met tight deadlines. I know I'm good at what I do. James listened quietly, making small sounds of sympathy and encouragement. He kept talking about company culture and fit. Emma continued, I don't understand what I did wrong, James. I was prepared, professional, and qualified. I researched the company for hours. I practiced my answers. I dressed appropriately. But none of it mattered. Emma's voice broke as she remembered how small and unwelcome Mr. Stone had made her feel. I keep thinking about all the other interviews, all the rejections. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought. Maybe I'm fooling myself about having talent in technology. Emma, stop, James said firmly but kindly. You are incredibly talented. Don't let one bad interview make you doubt yourself. James was quiet for a long moment. Emma could hear him breathing, and she wondered if he was thinking about how to comfort her. But then he said something that changed everything. Emma, I need to tell you something. Pinnacle Tech Solutions. That's my company. I'm the CEO. Emma's heart stopped. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. What? I've been using my full name, James Thompson, at work. I didn't realize you were interviewing there because you use your maiden name, Williams. But Emma, what you're describing, that's not how we treat candidates. That's discrimination. Emma sat up straight on the sofa, her mind racing. Her own husband was the CEO of the company that had just rejected her, the company where Mr. Stone had made her feel so small and unwelcome. James, are you serious? You're the CEO of Pinnacle Tech. Yes, I am. And I'm furious about what happened to you today. This is not acceptable. No one should be treated the way you were, especially not in my company. Emma felt a mixture of shock, anger, and something else she hadn't felt in months. Hope, all this time. While she had been struggling to find work, her husband had been running one of London's most successful tech companies. Why didn't you tell me? Emma asked. I wanted you to succeed on your own merit. I didn't want you to feel like you needed my help. But this is different. This is wrong. Emma began to understand. James had always supported her career, dreams, but he had never offered to help her get a job at his company. He had wanted her to achieve her goals independently, which she appreciated. But now, something terrible had happened. And it wasn't about getting help anymore. It was about justice. I'm flying back tonight. James continued, his voice firm and determined. This is not acceptable. I'm going to find out exactly what happened and make sure it never happens again. For the first time in hours, Emma felt a spark of hope. Maybe this nightmare would lead to something better. Maybe her painful experience could prevent other people from facing the same discrimination the next morning. James arrived at Pinnacle Tech's office before 8 o'clock. He had taken the first flight back from Manchester and spent the entire night thinking about what Emma had told him. His wife's tears and the pain in her voice had kept him awake. But more than that, he was angry about what had happened in his own company. James went straight to his office and began reviewing security footage from the previous day's interviews. The company kept recordings of all interviews for training purposes, but James had never needed to watch them before. What he saw made him furious. The footage showed Emma arriving early. Looking professional and prepared, she waited politely in the lobby, observing the office environment with interest and hope. But when Mr. Stone appeared, everything changed. Even on the silent video, James could see Stone's dismissive body language and Emma's growing discomfort. James also spent time reviewing company hiring records from the past year. He looked at which candidates had been rejected and which had been hired. The pattern was clear and disturbing. Qualified candidates from diverse backgrounds were consistently rejected, while less qualified candidates were often hired if they fit a certain profile. At 9 o'clock sharp, James called an emergency meeting. He asked Helen Clark, the HR director, to bring Mr. Stone to the main conference room immediately. Helen arrived first, looking nervous because emergency meetings with the CEO were unusual. Good morning, Helen, James said calmly. Please sit down. We need to discuss some serious issues with our hiring practices. A few minutes later, Mr. Stone entered the room. He looked confident, as if he had no idea why he had been called to this meeting. James had worked with Stone for 3 years and had always found him to be competent. But now he was seeing a different side of the man. "Mr. Stone," James began, his voice calm but firm. "I want to discuss yesterday's interview with Emma Williams." Stone shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Something in James's tone warned him that this was not a casual conversation. "The candidate. She wasn't suitable for the position, sir," Stone replied, trying to sound professional. "Really? A woman with an Oxford degree and 5 years of experience wasn't suitable. Can you explain why?" Stone realized he was in trouble. He could see the danger in James's eyes, though the CEO's voice remained controlled. Stone began to stumble through weak explanations. "Well, sir, it's not just about qualifications. We need to consider cultural fit and communication skills." The candidate seemed, well, she might not have been comfortable in our environment. "What do you mean by our environment, Richard?" James asked, his voice getting colder. "I mean, our team works very closely together. We need people who understand how we do things here, people who can blend in naturally." James leaned forward. "I've reviewed other interviews you've conducted, Richard. There's a pattern here. Qualified candidates from diverse backgrounds are being rejected while less qualified candidates are being hired. This stops now." Stone's face went pale. He tried to defend himself, but James had done his homework. The evidence was clear, and there was no way to explain it away. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Stone said desperately. "I always try to hire the best candidates who look like you." "You mean?" James replied. "Richard, your employment with this company is terminated immediately. Helen will escort you out and explain the severance process." Stone stood up, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "Sir, I've been loyal to this company for years. Surely we can discuss this." "There's nothing to discuss," James said firmly. "Your behavior has been discriminatory and unacceptable. It ends today." After Stone left the building, James called a meeting with his entire leadership team. He explained what had happened and announced immediate changes to company policy. "All interviews will now include multiple interviewers," James announced. "No single person will have the power to reject qualified candidates based on personal bias. We're implementing anti-bias training for all managers starting next week." James also established anonymous reporting systems so employees could report discrimination without fear of retaliation. He hired a diversity and inclusion specialist to review all hiring practices and make recommendations for improvement. "This company will be known for fairness and inclusion," James announced to his leadership team. "We're going to do better. We're going to be the kind of company that attracts the best talent from everywhere, regardless of background." Within weeks, Pinnacle Tech began transforming. New hiring practices were implemented, and word spread throughout London's tech community that the company was committed to fair treatment. Talented people from all backgrounds began applying for positions. Emma watched these changes with pride, knowing that her painful experience was creating opportunities for others. Her rejection had led to justice, and justice was leading to positive change. 3 months later, Emma was sitting in her flat working on a freelance project when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Pinnacle Tech Solutions, and for a moment, Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had mixed feelings about the company now, even though she knew James had made important changes. "Hello, Emma. This is Helen Clark from HR at Pinnacle Tech," the voice said warmly. "I hope you're doing well." Emma remembered Helen from the stories James had told her about the changes at the company. Helen had been working hard to implement new hiring practices and create a more inclusive workplace. "Emma, we have a senior developer position that would be perfect for you. Would you be interested in interviewing? Emma paused for a moment. Part of her was excited about the opportunity. But another part was nervous about returning to the place where she had experienced such discrimination. I understand if you have concerns, Helen continued, as if reading Emma's thoughts. But I want you to know that things have changed significantly here. We now have completely new interview processes, and I think you'd be impressed with the improvements we've made. Emma decided to give it a chance. Yes, I'd be interested in learning more about the position. This time, the interview was completely different. Emma met with a diverse panel of managers from different departments. There was Sarah, a project manager from Wales, David, a senior developer from Scotland, and Maria, a team lead from Spain. They asked thoughtful questions about her experience and ideas, genuinely interested in her skills and vision for the future of technology. The interview lasted over an hour, and Emma felt respected and valued throughout the entire process. The panel asked about her technical expertise, her leadership experience, and her ideas for improving software development processes. They listened carefully to her answers and asked follow-up questions that showed they were truly considering her for the role. Emma was hired based on her merit, not her connections. When she started work the following Monday, she felt proud knowing that she had earned the position through her qualifications and abilities. Emma began leading a team working on innovative software solutions for small businesses. Her colleagues respected her expertise and welcomed her ideas. She introduced new coding practices that improved efficiency and helped the team complete projects faster. Her manager praised her leadership skills and her ability to solve complex problems. But Emma didn't stop there. She remembered how isolated and hopeless she had felt during her months of job searching, and she wanted to help others avoid that same experience. She started the mentorship program for young people from underrepresented backgrounds who wanted to enter technology. Every Saturday, Emma volunteered at community centres across London, teaching coding to children who reminded her of herself. She worked with teenagers who had big dreams but limited opportunities, showing them that technology could be their path to a better future. You don't need expensive equipment to start learning, Emma would tell her students. You just need curiosity and determination. Emma also partnered with local schools to provide after-school coding classes. She taught children how to build websites, create simple apps, and understand the basics of computer programming. Many of her students had never imagined they could work in technology, but Emma showed them that it was possible. 6 months later, Emma stood before an audience of technology professionals at a conference in Birmingham. Her hometown. She looked out at the crowd and saw faces that represented the diversity she had been fighting for. The conference organizers had invited her to speak about inclusion in the tech industry. I was once told I didn't fit the company culture, Emma began, her voice clear and confident. But I learned that when companies say you don't fit, sometimes it means their culture needs to change. The audience applauded as Emma shared her story of perseverance and transformation. She talked about the importance of fair hiring practices and the value of diverse perspectives in technology teams. Your worth is not determined by others' prejudices, she continued. Keep believing in yourself, keep growing, and never let anyone dim your light. The technology industry needs your unique perspective and your innovative ideas. Emma spoke about the changes at Pinnacle Tech and how one negative experience had led to positive transformation from Em. Why people? She encouraged other companies to examine their own hiring practices and make necessary changes. After her speech, a young woman approached her. She looked nervous but determined, much like Emma had felt months earlier. Thank you, the young woman said. I needed to hear that today. I've been rejected from so many interviews. And I was starting to think something was wrong with me. Emma smiled, remembering her own journey from rejection to triumph. There's nothing wrong with you, she said gently. Sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most meaningful changes. The end.